Torah should be a tremendous chos for Shlema, for Yooel ben Proumitt Aliza, b'siyata d'shmaya. Should have a complete recovery. Come home from the hospital. B'karev mamish. Real, very, very soon. Mirta Hashem. So, Parshas Vayeira. There's much there. I want to discuss an Eish Kodesh that I heard. The Piyazetzner Rebbe. I heard this from. His name is Rameir Kehain. He's actually known very well from Eretz Yisrael. He's a menahel of a girls' seminary, and he gives on Eish Kodesh. He's an incredible Bali Machshava. If he ever hears that I said this about him, he'll be extremely upset. But that just shows that he's the real deal. And he said over this following piece of Eish Kodesh, it's not found on Parshas Vayeira. If you look in the whole Sefer Eish Kodesh, there is nothing on Parshas Vayeira. But it's said he used to give a shiur every year on the yahrzeit of his son. The Eish Kodesh's son was killed in a bombing on the ends of Sukkot. So he used to give a shiur, and he said over the following Torah, and I heard it, and I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I wanted to share it with everyone. I think it contains an incredible lesson. So let's begin. Bear with me for a moment how it's going to connect to the parsha, because to start, it's going to seem a little bit abstract. And he deals with the following question, a question that I'm sure plagues many of us, whether we think about it consciously or not. But it's a question. It's a question that maybe even if we don't think about it, let's try to think about it together. When times are difficult, we're going through difficult times. When times are difficult, there's different ways we deal with the difficulty. There are some times that times are difficult, and we find this inner energy, this inner emotion, and we all of a sudden have kavanah and tefillah, and we all of a sudden are able to daven with a passion, and we're all of a sudden able to do chasadim, givaldik. But sometimes that's really only because, we have to say this nicely, that tzara hasn't really hit us that much. When it's a little bit distant, then we're able to sort of straddle those two worlds. But sometimes when it becomes very close to heart, and let's just remind ourselves, the Eish Kodesh B'Yizetz Rebbe is sitting in the Warsaw Ghetto, and each of his pieces was written in the Warsaw Ghetto, where the Torahs that he said over to his Talmidim in the Warsaw Ghetto, and that's the reason I believe why it was published by year, to give you an appreciation of the backdrop of what's going on. So we're dealing here in 1940. His son, this is the first yahrzeit of his son that was killed from a bombing. And the question he wanted to discuss is what happens when you don't feel it? What happens when you feel you're in so much pain, you're in such a bad place, you're in such a difficult matziv that you daven because you're a Jew. And you maybe give dua chesed because you're a Jew, and you're Shomer Shabbos because it's what you do. But you one day think about it and you're like, I don't really feel what I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of maisim. I'm doing a lot of actions. But is there really that much of a lave? Is there that much of a passion? Not so much. So it's true that at the first thought, when you hear this, like, what do you mean? That on Simchas Torah, the day after Simchas Torah, when we heard about the terrible tzara in Klal Yisrael, we actually had kavanah. Well, maybe that was because it was distant, but at home. But when someone, Rachmana litzlan, is at a very bad matzav, yes, of course, you say Tehillim. But a lot of the other things that you do, if you think about it, become a bit robotic. You're Shomer Shabbos, and you do mitzvahs, and you do this, and you do that. And in case you can't really put your mind into the mind of a tzara, just think about a busy day. We don't have to go into tzaris. Just think about a very busy day, and maybe it's a regular day of your life. That you woke up and you davened because you davened. Then you maybe did some chesed, some tzedakah, and maybe you davened again in the day. Maybe you learned a few minutes. But when you went to sleep, if you were to go back and rewind in the whole day, you might feel like, was my tefillah something that I'm proud of? Was my Torah something that I was proud of? Was my chesed something that I was proud of? And that's the question he's dealing with. Now, to preface is that it's a question to ask, to discuss. But we have to realize that even if I don't have a good answer, which the answer he gives is so beautiful, but even if there wasn't a good answer, you know what the answer would be? Keep on doing it. Keep on going through the robotic actions, because we cannot fathom what word of tefillah is, what 1 ounce of chesed is, and when 1 word of Torah is. And certainly, when you don't feel it, what it means. When you feel it, then you get the shaloi lishma. When you sit down and learn for 10 minutes, and you understand it, and you had a good kasha, so you walk home feeling, I did something. But when you don't feel it at some level, then you don't get the physical tangibility of it. So then Can you imagine the schar? So the truth is, if we had no answer to this question, we would just say, you know what? Keep on doing it and pushing to do the robotic motions. Push to say an extra tefillah, push to give an extra kapitel, push to give an extra word of Torah. Do it all shaloi lishma, do it all without any feeling in the world, and we'll never fathom what it can mean. One word of Torah, what word of chesed, what word of tefillah. And that's really the reality. And as we always say, we should just stop there. And we should just let that thought hit home. And with that, we should move on. And we should say, okay, I don't feel it, but I don't care. I'm a soldier. You think the soldier sitting in war, you think maybe he really understands at that moment the severity of what he's doing? Absolutely not. Because if he did, he'd break and he'd have a nervous breakdown. But at the moment, he goes into robot mode. He goes into soldier mode. But that's an incredible soldier. So if that's enough, stop there. And if that spoke to you, for the next few minutes, turn off your brain, have a piece of sushi, shtick more cholent, maybe open up the popcorn, and then we could call it a night. But says the Ish Kodesh something absolutely beautiful, and this is what comes with this week's parsha. We have the Akedah. That which is going to, Amir Hashem, bring an end to this long and bitter galus is going to be the Akedah. Says the Gemara in Shabbos that Yitzchak Avinu is going to come to Kadosh Baruch Hu and say, Ad Kan, enough, redeem my children. And it's going to work. It's going to work. And Hashem is going to listen to Yitzchak Avinu, whole lengthy Gemara, Geshmaka Gemara. Hashem's going to listen to Yitzchak Avinu and bring the Gula. So 1 second. Yitzchak Avinu, where are you? You have the trump card. You have it. You have the golden buzzer. What are you waiting for? You can do it. Yitzchak, right now, go to Hashem and say, that's it, finished. And bring the Gula. That's what the Gemara says. So what's Yitzchak Avinu waiting for? If he's able to do it right now, why doesn't he? Says the Ish Kodesh, an absolutely beautiful idea. What did Yitzchak Avinu do? What was that Kedas Yitzchak? Let's think about it for a moment. It was the greatest action to ever happen in mankind. It's an action that we reap the zchus until eternity, literally until Mashiach. But did Yitzchak Avinu actually do anything? No. There was a lot of ratzain, a lot of desire, a lot of passion, a lot of... He could have done everything, but he didn't because he wanted it. He wanted to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, did he actually do anything? No.
It's harder to not.
That's good. I like that. That was the first thing I was going to say before I close H Kodesh. We'll pause and we'll mention what Ravavi is saying, which is true, is that itself is the greatest victory. Is that he could have said no and he allowed it to happen, which is absolutely incredible. But to go one step more is that he had the ratzon, he had the passion, he had the desire. He wanted to allow himself to be killed al Kiddush Hashem. It just didn't happen because Hashem said no. So Yitzchak Avinu has what? Has a lot of machshava, a lot of rotzain, a lot of leiv, without the maisim. Says the Eish Kodesh. You know what we have? Very good. As crazy as it sounds. Says the Eish Kodesh. What do we have? But says the Ish Kodesh, what do we have? We have the maisim without the leiv. So it's not that Yitzchak Avinu could come to Hashem at any moment and say, just bring Mashiach. He can't. When our maisim combine with his machshava, that is the ultimate golden ticket. That's the day that Yitzchak Avinu is going to say, Hashem, you know what I did for you? I gave my leave, I gave my rutz, and I wanted to do it 100%. Klal Yisrael, look at them. Look, they don't feel it. As much as maybe, and now we can take it one step further. Even at times that we do feel it a little bit, do we really feel it? You hear stories of Gedalim who davened, who learned. You hear things of Gedalim that sat and learned for hours and hours, and we can't even fathom minutes on minutes, and hours. So do we really? Says the Eish Kodesh, that's what Yitzchak Avinu is going to tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's going to tell Hashem, I had all the rutzin in the world. Look at your children. They have all the maisim in the world. They don't have the ratzin, but allow their maisim to combine with my machshava. And this is a very encouraging thought, because this is another answer to the age-old question, how are we going to be the ones to bring the geula? As much as, yes, we're trying and we're doing a lot incredible in the world of Torah. It's overwhelming. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. Even if you just look at what's going on today versus, again, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, the amount of people to have people nightly learning is it used to be people didn't. I don't want to say it, but it was a chiddush for someone to daven with a minyan 3 times a day. Open a sefer, ulai, maybe, perhaps. You just look at, again, daf yomi, daf yomi, no. Just look at the numbers. The numbers are wild. Whether anyone understands or not, but just the fact that there's that many yidden opening a sefer every day, and then you go into the kinyan, and you go into the araisa, and you go into the amid yomi, and you go into everything. It's mind-boggling. That's aside from all the people that have a chavrusa daily or weekly in machshava and in Torah and in all the incredible areas of Torah. That's what Yitzchak Avinu ultimately is going to tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's the chizuk that we all have to take. That when it's extremely difficult and we can't feel it and we don't feel it, and we sometimes want to just throw in the towel and say, what's the really worth? So number one is, it's really worth a lot. And number two is that it's actually worth even more than that, because that is going to be that which ultimately will combine to bring the Geula. I want to add on one dot to the Vart. One dot to the Vart. I want to add on a dot of Arachayim. And I want to add on a dot of, I think it's Ar Sameach, someone told me today. I want to add on 2 dots to make it, 1 dot is a little more esoteric and 1 dot is more practical. So let's start with the esoteric and we'll end with the practical. The Arachayim HaKadosh says, we all know that light, Sedaim, what happened? His wife looks back and she turns into a pillar of salt. Pillar of salt, thank you. Anyone ever wonder why? Why? No, why did her looking transform her into a pillar of salt? It's what? Yeah, what's going on? It's an incredible story, straight out of Hollywood, but what's going on? So Arachayim HaKadosh says something absolutely beautiful. The Malachim tell light, don't look back. Don't look back. We all know, if I tell you don't look at the door, we have to look at the door. But this was like, Malachim, light, don't do it. We're saving your life. Don't look back. Al tabit acharecha. Don't look backwards. What's the end of the pasuk? Al tabit acharecha. Val tamud b'chol kikahara. Himalit, run away. Penti safeh, lest you be swept up with them. Says the Arachayim HaKadosh. Why was light not told to look back? This teaches us another lesson of what our maisim do. Hatam letzad ki akaras pnei ha'adam. The recognition of one's face. Ta'aneh boy ma pa'al. Your face testifies on anything you've done in your life. On Lot's face, you know what you saw? You saw rishus. You saw all his aveiros. Lazeh, therefore, lo yachzer panav l'mola'ir. Don't turn around. Why? Kisham ha-mashchisim, because at the city in Sodom, who is there? The mashchisim, the destructive angels, the malachim that are destroying the city. And you know what's going to happen? If those malachi chaval, if they see your face, v'yakiru bo siman atiyov, they're going to see on your face that you did wrong also. And at that moment, ve'ein lo yischos li'natzal mehem, you will not be able to be saved. And how do we know? What's the proof? His wife turned around, they saw her face, and in the moment, she turned into salt. What do we see from this? Aside from the absolutely incredible, just beautiful shot. You know what you see from here? You see that what you do is a reality that is written on your face. This is why a tzaddik, you'll go to a tzaddik, a makobel, and he'll look at you and he'll talk to you and he'll tell you the thing you need to hear. And you're like, what? What in the world? How did he know I need to work on chesed? How did he know I need to work on tzedakah? How do you know I need to work on tefillah b'minyan? How did he know? How did he know? The answer is, it's written on your face. We can't see it. And he might not even understand how he could see it. But that's how Ruach HaKodesh works. That just comes through his mouth when he looks at such a thing. So we're talking about doing maisim. We're talking about just doing dry actions. That's what it does. If the evil action can be written in your face to the extent that when you look at the malach, it's just going to incinerate you. So much so the other way. Can you imagine what it is when you sit and you learn when it's difficult, and then when you what the malachim see in our faces? Absolutely incredible. And let's just end with our sameach. The Akedah, back to the Akedah for a moment. Back to the Akedah. I know it's late. Back to the Akedah. Avram Avinu, I think we all know the Midrashim, Rashi quotes, he's going to the Akedah, and the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, pulled out every trick in his book. He made himself into an ocean, and he did everything to deter Avram Avinu. Everything. To the extent that when it came to the point that Avram Avinu is about to shecht his son, and he's told no, Avram Avinu was misupik. He was misupik. He didn't know. Wait, is this another trick of the Satan? I'm hearing a bas kol. So what? How do I know that's wrong? How do I know it's right? And that's why if you look at the psukim, it's clear that he was going to continue. Even after he heard the bas kol, he did not put down the knife. Avram Avinu, you just heard not to do it. How do I know? Maybe it's the Satan. But then the pasuk continues that he's told that look in that bush, and what's in the bush? The animal is tangled in the bush. All of a sudden, he turns and he goes and he shechs, and Yitzchak Avinu lives. How did he know? Asks Ar Sameach. You know how we know? What's the lashon of the pasuk? That the sinah was nechaz b'svach. It was entangled. Says the Ar Sameach, when the Satan does something, he's not going to make it entangled. If it's difficult for you to do, that means it's the right thing to do. When it's easy to do, that's when we have to be worried. When he saw that to put down the knife and not shech his son, it's going to require effort to go and get this animal out of the entanglement and then shecht it, that's how he knew it was the right thing to do. And that's a lifelong lesson which many of the Bali Musar speak about, that often we're wondering, is it the right thing, is it the wrong thing? When something is difficult, that's usually a telltale sign. When something is easy, and when something is, everything is, this is the thing to do, and it just makes so much sense, that's when we have to ask yourself a question. 1 second. Why is that so easy? Why does it make so much sense? Why am I so quick to run to do it? We don't run. The Yetzer Hara doesn't let us run to things which are the right thing to do. When it's the right thing to do, that's when it's so difficult. We'll end with the words of Mesilas Yesharim that I learned this week, which is chizik to all of us, that what happens at, we have shared 8 o'clock, so what happens at 7:55 when you're sitting there on the couch? Every part of your body, your physical, your ruchnius, your gashmi, your leiv, your nefesh, your moyach, everything tells you what? You're not getting off this couch. And sometimes, maybe when we win and we get up, we feel like, why am I such a, pardon my French, a loser? Why can't I just get off the couch? Why is this such a struggle? We sometimes bother ourselves, like, why? What? I can't just come and learn for a few minutes? I can't just get up and down with a minyan? I can't just do it? Why is it so hard? And we sometimes beat ourselves up over that it's so hard. Says in Mesilas Yesharim, a line that we have to remember. The teva, God input into this world, that the nature, what does the nature mean? Right? We know the nature is that which happens without any effort. The nature of this world is to be chamri, is to be gashmi, is to be kaved, is to be heavy. Says Mesilas Yesharim, the very nature of the human being is to be lazy, is not to want to get up. To get up is you're going against the tide. You're fighting. That's why it's difficult. It's not difficult because you have a problem. True, you can work on your musr and you can work on everything. But that's the natural state. And when I learned this past week, it was a very big chizik, because how often do we just feel like, oh, why do I feel that way? Why can't I just do it? Realize that's the way you're supposed to be. And with that realization, you'll be able to push through, and Emir Hashem will be able to continue the maisim. Hopefully we'll be able to inject some leiv into it, like we brought out from the Ishmitzer the other week. That hopefully we'll be able to inject some leiv into it, because when you have that fire, when you have that passion, it elevates the action so much higher. But even when we can't, we'll continue plugging through. We'll continue fighting our teva. We'll continue doing the actions, even which don't really have any meaning to us, because we know we have to do them. And you know what we'll gain? We'll gain that it's going to be written all over our face. That's when the face starts shining. That's when the mensch, that's when the person becomes such a beautiful person. And hopefully, b'siyata d'shmaya, finally, Yitzchak Avinu will look down and he'll see, how in the world are these Yidden still doing actions? How are they still pushing? How are they still fighting? How are they still coming out to learn? Everything in the world is going crazy and their mind is in 1 trillion places. And yet, you know what they're doing? They're turning off the phone, they're shutting the screen, they're opening a sefer, and they're trying to say a few words of Torah, a few words of Tehillim, a few words of Tefillah. Those very actions will be b'siyata d'shmaya, the actions that will bring the ultimate gula. All the Torah should be an incredible chus for Shlema for Yואל ben Prumitt, Aliza.